Shalom guys, welcome back to another episode here at YASHAV Ministries with Casa de Israel Yara. Thank you for being here. If you like the content that we have on our channel, please like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please put them in the comment section down below. Also, share with any youth that is interested in learning about the Word of Elohim and the Word of God and its truth and its context, right? And to find the way to connect with the Father. I thank you for being here. Again, I took back my library. I was letting Rico borrow it for a little while. And so now I'm back. This is my library, guys. So, I'm just kidding. Here at Wisdom and Torah Studios. And Rico was generous enough to let me borrow his studio once again. I was having some technical difficulties with my laptop. But, with that being said, let's get started with this week's Torah portion. So, this week's Torah portion is Teitzei, right? And so Teitzei is when you go out, or when you go, right? And so this Torah portion is focusing on the laws of warfare, marriage. But in this Torah portion, there's out of the 613 commandments that the Torah gives, there is, if I'm not mistaken, 72. Right, 72 commandments that are described and explained in this Torah portion, going from marriage, Teitzei, when you go to war, which was what we're going to talk about, and you find a woman from that nation, and you want to marry her. All these different types of laws that are part of the Torah. Right, and so we're going to study a little bit of them. Obviously, we're not going to be able to study all of them because it's going to take us forever. So, what we're going to focus on is two parts of this Torah portion, which is the beginning, which talks about when you go to war and you find a woman of the nation and that you like, and then of the importance of keeping yourself true to your vow. Right, so because it's gonna be, we're gonna talk about a little bit about marriage, right? Why is it important to understand marriage? Because as a youth leader and as young students and people in this world, right, and the times that we live in, right, very crazy times, it's taught that marriage is something very light and something that you can take for granted. You can test it out, or if you meet a girl and you get to know her and then you marry her, and then if you don't like her, it's okay, you can divorce her, or all these things that are treated lightly, when the Torah and the Bible itself makes it a very important thing to honor and be true to a vow. Because when you get married, you make a vow to stay faithful to that person till death does you do us part, right? So that vow that you make to her, right, is very important in the same way the vow that she makes to you. And so today we're going to talk about that a little more, but we're going to focus on the beginning of this Torah portion, and then we'll speak a little bit about that. So this week's Torah portion starts like this. It says, when you go out for battle against your enemies, and Yahweh your God gives them into your hand, and you lead the captives away, and you see among the captives a woman beautiful in appearance, and you become attached to her, you want to take her as a wife, then you shall bring her into your household, and she shall shave her head, and she shall trim her nails, and she shall remove the clothing of her captive from her, and she shall remain in your house, and she shall mourn her father and her mother a full month, and after this you may have sex with her, and you may marry her, and she may become your wife. And then, if you do not take a delight on her, then you shall let her go, to do whatever she wants. But you shall not treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. If a man has two wives, and that one is loved, and the other one is disliked, and the one loved and the one that is disliked have born for him a son, if that happens, that the firstborn son belongs to the one that he disliked, nevertheless, it will be the case that on that day, the bestowing of his inheritance upon his son, he will not be allowed to treat as the firstborn of the son of the one that's being disliked, uh, first person, a beloved wife, if in preference to the son of the disliked wife, who is the firstborn son. But he shall acknowledge the firstborn son of the disliked wife by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the first fruits of his vigor. To him is the legal claim of birthright. So, in the beginning of this portion, we see that Elohim is giving Israel instructions on how they're going to treat the women that they find at war when they drive away the people of that land, and the women are left over, right? And they seize the women, and they see a female or a woman that they like, right? That they find attractive, right? And they want to marry her. Then he gives the specific instructions, right? And it says that they have to shave their heads, trim their nails, right? They remove their clothes of captivity, right? And so there's many commentaries and opinions about this, right? And we're going to see them. All right, this is the book of this is the JPS Torah commentary in Deuteronomy. It says that says the law dealing with marriage to a woman captured in war appears here and not in chapters 20 because it focuses on marital relations, not the war in which she is captured. Most women captive in ancient Rome became slaves, but in some cases a soldier found one whom he desired to take as a wife or a concubine, a practice well known from the Homeric Greece and early Arabia. This law requires a soldier who wishes to marry a captive woman to show consideration for her feelings. He must allow her to adjust to all that has happened by bringing her back to his home and waiting a month before marrying her. In case he later becomes dissatisfied with her, he may not reduce her to slavery. A significant aspect of this law is respect for the personhood of the captive woman and the moral obligations created by initiating a sexual relationship with her. Right? In the light of chapters 20, verse 10 through 18, the law permitting marriage with a foreign woman must refer to a non-Canaanite woman. It apparently does not regard them as possessing the same treat to Israel's relations integrity as would a Canaanite. Perhaps it is assumed that since they are separated from their own culture, they will quickly assimilate to Israelite ways and will not attract their husbands to their own native religion. Right, so here it's explaining to us that the purpose of letting her mourn, right? Because there's a lot of interpretations to her shaving her head and trimming her nails and taking her clothes of captivity that represents what she was, right? And so I had questions in my youth asking really, because we can connect this to our times now, right? Because in our movement, right, in our system of belief, right, whether it be Hebrew roots, Messianic, whatever you classify yourself with, right? We believe in the Torah now, and we believe in the structure of the Father and His order, right? What we've been talking about, the hierarchy and the laws that regulate how the people are going to conduct themselves in a public manner, especially not only in the land as the kingdom established, but now in the dispersion, right? Because now it is very important for us to remember and understand that we have to reflect and understand that we represent Him, even though we're not in the land, even though He is not officially in a legal aspect established in the world right now. He is the creator of everything, and we represent Him, right? And so the way that His kingdom is going to be reflected, as we have spoken, is us representing Him, right? And so the same way, last Torah portion we studied that Moses spoke of the coming king, right, and the coming prophet like him that will give us the example, right? And we established that was Yeshua, right? And so here it is explaining that you have to give that person opportunity, right? And like I said, in my youth class, they asked me if I meet somebody outside of my faith, right? And they don't believe what I believe in, and they might believe something else. How do I help them recognize or help them understand my faith, and so that it can move past something more? Well, the most important part is you staying true to you, right? In my case, when I was outside of my wife's belief system, right? She believed in the Torah, and she was faithful to it, right? And I was not. I wasn't aware of how serious the biblical aspect was, right? I thought it was a book, and I did believe in God and believe in the Son of God, but I didn't have an understanding of how serious it was, and how historically profound it was and it will be, right? And so what helped me in my case, right? I was the captive, right? I was the one in the world and nations, right? And she came and I met her, right? And what helped me was that she stayed true to her, right? She stayed true to God first. She told me, I'm faithful to my God, and this is what I believe in. And I was willing, because I saw how true she was to her God, and how I saw how true she was willing to represent Him above all things. Then that helped me have an interest, right, and a certain respect, right? And so that is what's going on here, right? She gave me the opportunity to assimilate, right, and little by little recognize that I need to learn, right, that I need to make the steps necessary for me to grow. And so all that time she gave me, right, helped me connect and see her example, or see her being a light to the world, right? Being a light to me in that case. And so this gives you an example that you have to give, right? If you're ever, as a grown adult, you have to understand that if you are going to be in a relationship, you have to stay true to Elohim and represent Him, and that person that you meet will understand that and will respect it. And if they cannot, then that is not the person for you. Okay? And so, also the trimming of the nails and the shaving of the head, it was a sign of mourning, right? Because these women, right, in the ancient recent times, they depended on the honor of their father, on the protection of the father, and the protection of the husband, right? And so when you take that away, they're very vulnerable. So for them to lose father, mother, brother, sister, right, they're alone, and now they see the Israelites, and they are in mourning for the loss of their family. Now that if you see a woman, right, they would have seen a woman that they wanted, or that they felt attracted to, they had to let her mourn, right, for 30 days, and that will let her and give time to get back to her senses. And then after that, you were able to be in a relationship with her, right? So it takes time. You have to be understanding of other people's emotions. You have to be understanding of other people's mindsets and points of view. You cannot just implement who you are and what you think right away. You have to be mindful of others, right? Always respecting and having your position, but be mindful of other people. In that always you will see that other people have a different point and a different mindset and a different point of view that you need to respect without compromising your belief system. Okay, so let's get pretty. It says, and by the Talmudic times, a formal procedure of religious conversion had been created, and the halacha permitted such marriage only if the woman agreed to convert to Judaism. All right, so this is in Judaism. Even so, rabbis took a dim view of marriage with captives, and they regarded such unions as motivated by lust, and considered the present law a concession to the likelihood that they would take place, whether permitted or not. In their view, verses 12 to 13 are designed to delay and ideally discourage such marriage by making the women unattractive. It says here, verse, a beautiful woman, right, does not mention a husband for whom a married captive will surely mourn. The law possibly has only an unmarried woman in mind. So here is giving commentaries on each verse. But what I want to read is this. It says, verse 12 to 13. It says, She shall trim her hair and pare her nails and discard her captive garb. Josephus and Rambam, right? These are um, historians from the time, right? See these acts as part of the woman's mourning for her family and countrymen. Rashi and Abravanel, following Rabbi Akiva, see them as separate acts intended to make her unappealing so that her captor, who was attracted by her beauty, might change his mind about marrying this pagan woman. And some commentators think that they signify her change of status by discarding her old clothing, and those parts of her body that are removable she sheds her former life, or even or even her former self, since hair, fingernails, and clothing are sometimes regarded as symbolizing the person. So this is where it connects more to the aspect that we're trying to establish, right? Right. There's two aspects, right? The mourning, right, and for her family and her countrymen, and then there is obviously the most popular belief in Yeshua's time, right, Jesus' time, and in our time now. If they wouldn't marry or didn't want to marry them, they trim their nails, shave their heads, and it will make them unattractive, and then they wouldn't want to marry them anymore. But the truth is that is a form of giving her a time to grieve her countrymen and her family, and it gives her an opportunity to shed her past life, reinvent herself, regrow, and move forward with the Israelite men, right, in Torah. Or if they don't see eye to eye and they want to separate, the Israelite has to let her go and let her be whatever she wants to be without making her a slave, right? And so she has to give them that freedom the same way, the way we do it, right? We have to be able to present ourselves, right? Give that other person the opportunity to understand your faith and get to know who you are and what you believe in. And if you give them that time and they are able to change and pass from their past thoughts or their stance in their personal life, right, and they're willing to reconcile with your belief system, then you're able to move forward. And if not, then you will maturely come into a conclusion that it's not going to work. Now, we're going to talk about the importance of the marriage, because Yeshua taught us that, right, there's a conflict between two houses, right? There is the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel, right? And so these are leaders of Judaism in Yeshua's time, right? And so they had become predominantly very popular in Yeshua's time. And so the case of marriage, right, and obviously in this chapter where it talks about not only marriage to a captive woman, but marriage in general, right, and other laws of marriage and honor and shame, right? But here, Yeshua's time, right, Shammai Hillel, like I was saying, and there was this conflict between if you were able to divorce your wife for whatever reason, and if you had to stay true to your wife, and the only way that you divorce your wife is based on if she was worshiping other gods or she was not willing to honor Elohim, right? Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So these two houses had a different mindset, right? Hillel was more of a, you can say, conservative. He was willing to work things out, basically, right? Shammai was more like, you can unmarry her if she thinks she's ugly, let her go. And so Yeshua here is dealing with that, right? In his time, there was two types of mindsets, two houses, right? And Yeshua was establishing his train of thought, which was leaning more to Hillel, but Yeshua obviously is establishing his point and his perspective on that, right? And he says the following here in Mark 10 says, "From there he set out and came to the region of Judea and the other side of the Jordan. And again crowds came together to him. And again, as he was accustomed to do, he began to teach them. And they asked him if it was permitted for a man to divorce his wife in order to test him. And he answered and said to them, 'What did Moses command you?'" Right? And so here, Yeshua is asking a question based on the Torah. Right? So Yeshua is pointing to the Torah because he wants to know what Moses said and what Moses commanded. So they said, "Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce to send her away." But Yeshua said to them, "He wrote this commandment for you because your hardness of heart. But from the beginning of creation, he made them male and female. Because of this, a man will leave his father and mother and will be joined to his wife, and the two will be one flesh, so that they are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore, what God has done, joined together, and man must not separate." So, here, Yeshua says that a man and woman are one flesh, right? They're one, right? And so, Elohim created them like this, right? The law of certificate of divorce is based on the fact that Elohim, or it says here Moses wrote it down, right? But it is an understanding that if you cannot find a common ground, right, whether it be let's say you meet a woman or a man that worship other gods, that is not a common ground, right? If you meet a woman that says that can't believe in Elohim, right, and doesn't accept Yeshua, that is common ground that says that you are not compatible, right? But in the time of Yeshua, many people were saying, if you think she's not good looking enough, or if she doesn't treat you right because she doesn't cook right or whatever, these things are stuff that can be worked, that you are meant to work, right? You shouldn't be hard-headed and stubborn in your own ways and see it your own point of view, right? Like we talked in the beginning, you have to be willing to understand the perspective of the other. That is the main point of a relationship and a marriage, and also our relationship in Israel with Israel, right? God and Israel is represented in a marriage covenant, a marriage relationship, meaning that God is our husband and we are the bride, right? Yeshua in representation of Elohim, meaning that he came in his representation as a messenger. He is connected as the husband and we are the bride, right? And so in our relationship with him, do we want him to let us go because we make mistakes or because we're ignorant to certain things, right? We wouldn't want that. And so that's where the aspect of putting yourself in other people's shoes comes into place, right? That's what in the beginning when we read with the captive woman, right? The Israelite if he finds a woman that is a captive, he has to put himself in the shoes of that woman and understand that she is in mourning, right? And she is in pain because of those people that she lost. So the Israelite is understanding of that and gives her the space and the time to basically mourn and then rebuild herself so that they can be in a relationship, right? In the same way we are, right? We were in the world, right? Israel broke the covenant, right? And Elohim dispersed them into the world, right? And then he is trying to regain them back, right? And he's given us enough time for us to mourn. He's given us enough time for us to reinvent ourselves and grow and understand that the only truth is in his Torah. The only direction is in his word. And once we understand this, we'll find the way back to the Father. But if we don't understand this, we won't be able to not only understand the way to the Father, but we want to be able to understand the way of a family and a marriage, because that's the point, right? Elohim wants us to grow and procreate, right, and have family and bring our family to him, right, and be one flesh. And so the way we do this is understanding each other's perspective and understand that there's a legal aspect to this, right? And here it says a petition for divine assistance often took the form of vows. A person who sought God's aid in achieving a desired goal or relief from trouble might promise to do something pleasing to God afterwards in gratitude for his assistance. Examples of such desired goals included birth of a child, victory in battle, recovery from illness, and an escape from danger. The vow frequently promised to perform an act of tribute to God, to offer a sacrifice, or give a gift to sanctuary, such as money, cattle, or produce. In one case, dedication of a child to service at the sanctuary is mentioned. Psalms mention vows frequently, including vows to utter prayers and thanksgiving. Another type of vow was an abstination. The Nazarite vow, for example, included abstination from grape products. At first glance, the vow looks like a bargain with God. The practice originates with pre-Israelite religions that regarded worship as a means of supporting the gods and providing them with food and shelter. It was assumed that a request to the gods could be strengthened if the worshiper offers something in return that will be useful or pleasing to the God who granted the petition. This is a natural impulse, since worship is based on the forms of interaction, including petition that the people are familiar with in human society. Such forms of worship survive in the Bible. Despite its view that God does not eat or have other physical needs, because they also express the worshipper's gratitude, devotion, and recognition of his dependence on God, attitudes that the Bible values. For this reason, there was no need to suppress people's instinctive urge to strengthen petitions to God by promising something in return. Right? Even Psalms 50, verse 1 through 14 says, Supreme God, God Yahweh has spoken and summoned the earth from the rising of the sun for its settings. From Zion, the perfection of beauty, God shines forth. Our God comes and he's not silent. Before him, fire devours, and around him is very tempestuous. He summons the heavens above, that he might judge his people. Gather to me, my loyal ones, those who have made covenant with me by sacrifice, and the heavens declare his righteous, because God himself is a judge. Selah. And then we say, Baruch Shem Kevo Machuto Leolam Bayit. Hear, O my people, and I will speak. O Israel, and I will testify against you. I am God, your God. And it is not concerning of lack of your sacrifice that I rebuke you, and of your burnt offerings before me continually. I will not take from your house a bull or your stall a goat, because every animal of the forest is mine, the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird of the mountains and every moving creature in the field is mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, because the world and its fullness are mine. Do I eat the flesh of bulls or drink the blood of goats? Offer to God a thank offering, and pay your vows to the Most High. So here, the psalm is explaining what loyalty is and what God wants from the people, right? The sacrifices itself, right? God doesn't want the animal, right? Many people think that the animal, and I'll make sure I connect this with the marriage, right? But give me a second, right? The animal represents what was given to the priesthood that were serving. Okay, remember that the Levites don't have inheritance, right? So they depend on the offerings and what is given to Elohim, so he gives it to them, or in return we give it to them, right? And then the blood, which means life, is the one that Elohim wants, because he wants the life, not the animal, right? And so here he's saying that the animals, right, because in the ancient Near East they thought that the gods ate the food, like ate the animals, right? So the sacrifices were vain, right? They would kill an animal and put it in the altar, and they waited, and they thought that the god would eat it, right? God says no. That's why the altar is outside the temple, and that is where the sacrifice happens, and then the blood is taken and is presented, right? And the animal is given to the Levites, or in some commandments is shared with the people as well, right? But the point is that the faithfulness that God wants is to stay true to what you're saying, to your vow, to what you're proclaiming to believe, right? Marriage is an example of that, right? The Israelite that sees a woman in the nations, it stays true to Elohim, and that position of staying true to Elohim brings honor to you and to God. And that person that you bring is going to be able to mourn the lies that they have learned, and they're going to be able to assimilate in your faith, right? And as you give testimony to Elohim, that testimony will give truth to what your faith is, and that will give truth to what God wants you to do, right? So the message and the point for this week is to, right, meditate on the moral side of these things, right? Because we have been talking about the legal aspect of the Deuteronomic covenant, right, which is a Syrian and vassal treaty, right? We understood that there is a structure of this treaty that we need to stay true to, right? We understand how the judges, the future king, and the prophets will deliver the word of God, right? And here now is giving us a small glance, right? What we read today, right, is giving us a small glance of how we are representing Elohim when we go out, right? It says when you go out, right? They will conquer, but they will respect and still honor the humanity of the people that they retrieve, right? And if you want to succeed in not only outside, but in your relationship, in a future aspect, right? Because I'm speaking to the youth, but anybody that's listening, right? If you want to succeed in a marriage, right, in a true marriage, you have to understand that you have to understand the two aspects of everything and be willing to give the other side time, right, to reflect. And sometimes you yourself need time to reflect. But that representation, that relationship that we have, right, is a reflection of what you have with the Father, right? So the way that you treat your partner or your future partner, that will reflect the relationship that you personally have with the Father, right? Because that is what it connects. All of it is connected, right? Marriage, my wife and I, that is a connection and a representation of Israel, like all the body of Messiah and God, right? And the same way with the body of Messiah, Yeshua, to the Father, right? So we have to stay true to what we say, and we have to honor our word, and at the same time, that will bring honor to Elohim, and that will bring honor to His word and His Torah. With that being said, when you go out to the world, honor His word and honor your word to honor Him at all times. Thank you for watching. Have a great week. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.